Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the channel. And today we are going to discuss what has happened to our beloved Fatboy. But first, a viewer bike. And this is RP's 2003 100th anniversary Fatboy. He's got some Willie G skulls on the derby and timer cover, as well as a set of Viking saddlebags. And it sounds like it's a pretty reliable bike, as he's got about 68,000 miles on it. And that's a little over 109,000 kilometers for our metric folks. But that's a nice early twin cam model there. And thanks for setting that in. And if you want to see your bike in a video, send me a pic with some information. My email address is in the description to this video. As a Fatboy fan, I feel it is one of the best bikes that Harley has ever made. But I will say this is just my opinion. You don't have to agree with it, but it's just the way I see things. Also, there may be the odd little bit of bad language in this video here and there. So if you're easily offended, maybe you should go watch something else. But anyway, let's get into it. So if we want to look at where the Fatboy is now, we've got to look at where it came from. And I mean, just look at this bike. I mean, the gray ghost, if you will. When this bike came out, it was a work of mechanical art. Solid wheels, flared fenders, double wing military style deckling, and a big headlight out front. And this was the style through the Evolution engine Fatboys of the 90s and into the early to mid 2000s twin cam era. And in my personal opinion, this was the epitome of what the Fatboy is and the best looking bikes that were ever made. So around the 2007 model year, Harley changed up the styling on the Fatboy a little bit. This bike came with new deckling, which I am not a fan of at all. And gone were the completely solid wheels, as the company went with bullet hole styling. And I could take or leave that design, but I will admit, chromed out wheels like this did not look too bad. Now, a few years later, in 2010, we got the Fatboy Low. Now, this bike kept the bullet hole wheels, but got moved from deckling to a badge on the fuel tank that was much more reminiscent of the original double wing. The other styling change was the chrome and black components, which I always felt looked a little strange, almost like the bike had been pieced together from two separate bikes. And moving along to 2016 brought us the Fatboy S. Same wheels, same badging, but this model was all blacked out, and on these models, black is indeed beautiful. So it was in the model year 2018 where things really turned. It was the end of the classic styling of the Fatboy, and this really pissed some people off. Gone were the much loved flared fenders, and in came a chopped or bobbed style to show off these massive new tires. This was also something that folks took issue with, as they did not help at all with the handling of the bike, which was already not known to be much of a canyon carver. Another big bone of contention with this new design was the headlight. No more would we have the big bullet style headlight leading the way. It would now be encased in a large chrome nacelle. And luckily, these new models did keep a little of a nod to the previous years by keeping the shotgun exhaust and going back to the solid wheels and a form of the double wing badge. But of course, this would not last because Harley couldn't keep from fucking around with things. And this is a big problem I have with the company, and that is simply change for change's sake. This was a change that did not need to be made, but regardless, they went ahead anyway. In the 2022 model year, Harley decided to slot the wheels, so gone were the solids. The reason? Well, they had no real reason. They just felt like pissing around and changing it. Also gone was the double wing badge, instead putting out this, and I'm not sure what you would call it, but it definitely does not scream Fatboy. So that brings us to present day, 2025, when the company has decided to fuck around with the styling some more. Again, change for change's sake with no particular reason for doing so. And it almost makes me wonder sometimes if they're, for some reason, trying to intentionally sabotage this model, much like I think they're doing with the Road King. So let's have a look at the 2025 Fatboy, shall we? And the first thing that caught my eye was this ridiculous badging. What the hell is this? More than a few people now have told me that this looks more like an Indian Bikes badge. It's bland, it's boring, and little, if any, thought went into this. Terrible all around. I would expect to see this type of quality on a bike from 1925, not 2025. Very, very poor on Harley's part. Now, the air cleaner. And I am not a fan of this design to begin with, but what bothers me more is this is the same air cleaner that's on the Street and Road Glide. Again, no thought at all, just slap on whatever. And as a guy who's a big fan of the cruisers and not the tourers, having the company just throw on whatever touring parts are laying around, put them on a Fatboy, is almost, or on a Breakout for that matter, is almost like a little bit of a slap in the face. Like they couldn't come up with anything unique at all. Too much thought would have to go into that. And we also have a change to the pinstriping. Now, this is generally not a huge thing, especially when you have a bike that is a solid color like black or gray. But where I feel the issue is really apparent is when it comes to the red and black two-tone color offered this year. I think those lines just makes it look strange. Now, I think we really dodged a bullet though, in that the company did not decide to put on that 2-into-1 exhaust on the Fatboy. I have no problem with an aftermarket 2-into-1 exhaust, something that looks good like a Bassani or something like that. But Harley's 2-into-1, I think, looks terrible. But I am glad that they went with some LED lighting, the upgraded suspension, and the 117 engine, because I thought that was probably overdue. Now, the new tech on the Fatboy, such as ride modes, personally, I have no use for ride modes. Don't want them and don't want to pay more for them. You can keep those for the big fairing bikes. I feel that the Fatboy should be more of a stripped down machine, and it has enough tech already to begin with. And I come from a time where I grew up learning how to ride based on the conditions you had. If it was raining, you don't ride like an idiot. I didn't need a ride mode to be able to dial down my throttle response. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, and I know you're just waiting to put them in the comments, and that is that all the stuff I just mentioned is almost all changeable. I mean, you don't like the air cleaner, take it off, get a new one. You don't like the badging, buy a different badge, debadge it, whatever you want to do. Now, the color and the pinstriping might be a little bit difficult, and the ride modes, technically, you don't really have to use much. And yes, I agree this bike is customizable. But for me, when I look at a stock bike like this one, I don't want to immediately think, oh, well, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this, I gotta change that, gotta change that, gotta change that, and start thinking in my head how much it's gonna cost to change all this stuff to get it to something that I might actually want. And the things that I do change out on a bike, a lot of them have to do with function. You know, I will get a softer seat. I will get a more high flow air cleaner. You know, I will get better pipes, things like that. They should be stylish, but it's not all based on style. And quite frankly, if this is the road that they're going to take the Fatboy, where there's very little thought going into it, I probably won't be buying any more newer Fatboys in the future. But anyway, that's my take on the subject. That's my take on what they're doing with the Fatboy this year. Let me know your thoughts. I want to know. Put them in the comments below. And anyway, that'll be it for today, and we will catch you in the next one.